I'm Julie Zenner, and here's what's coming up this week on Almanac North. Wisconsin lawmakers passed a COVID-19 relief bill this week that was quickly signed into law by the governor. We'll talk with Representative Nick Milroy about that and other Wisconsin news. With many people now working from home, we'll talk with a psychology professor with some tips for being productive and reducing stress. And we'll share a music video on these uncertain times from some talented local college students. It's all coming up on Almanac North. Hello and welcome to Almanac North. Thanks for watching. Dennis Anderson will be back next week, and we'll hear more about that later in the show. Now, this week's show was recorded on Thursday and includes some pre-recorded interviews. Our first guest is joining us today over an internet video connection. He's Wisconsin State Assembly member Nick Milroy, a Democrat from South Range, just outside of Superior. And it's good to see you, Representative Milroy. Thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks for having me, Julie.
As I mentioned, we're recording this on Thursday afternoon, and just today, Governor Evers announced that he was going to be extending the Safer at Home order in Wisconsin for another month. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, the governor chose to extend the stay-at-home order until May 26th, and in that order, he has expanded some of the businesses that are able to do things like curbside pickup, deliveries, mailings. So we're starting to get a little bit closer to normal, but I know this is still going to be a tough pill for people to swallow. I do know that the stay-at-home order has been working. The projected cases in Wisconsin have not been reached because of the stay-at-home order, and we're very thankful for that. And we feel that listening to public health experts and trusting science is going to get us through this the quickest.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're doing things a little bit differently around here with all of these internet interviews. And I understand that you participated in a virtual session for the legislature this week. What was that like?
It was interesting. It was the first time ever that the Wisconsin legislature met virtually. So there was some technical difficulties, but we had plenty of practice. It did take longer to be able to go through all of the votes because they actually had to bring each representative up on the screen and see their face and confirm their vote electronically. So it was very interesting.
Mm-hmm. And you passed legislation to battle the effects of the coronavirus in Wisconsin. Can you talk about how that will help Wisconsin residents and businesses?
I can. It's extremely important that we pass this bill. We've been working for weeks with the governor's office, with our Republican counterparts in the legislature to come up with a package for relief. And the most important parts of the package were to ensure that we're maximizing the federal dollars that are going to come to the state through the CARES Act. So we've gotten rid of the 1-week waiting period for unemployment benefits, which is going to be a huge boost to people that are unemployed right now. We're covering vaccinations for people that are on senior care. We're extending prescriptions, allowing pharmacists to extend prescriptions. And we're just doing everything that we can to make sure we're capturing those federal dollars.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you share some of the concerns that some fellow Democrats have that this particular legislation did not go far enough in Wisconsin?
I do. The most important thing that I think we need to do that we haven't done is go to an all mail-in ballot system for elections in 2020. I think this is in the best interest of public health, and I think it's in the best interest of protecting our economy. When you have people congregating at polls, you increase the risk of spreading this disease and extending the economic and public health crisis that we have. So I think going to an all-in all mail-in ballot system would be in our best interest.
So do you see additional legislation for that coming up soon?
We actually proposed an amendment. It was voted down. There's also legislation out there. I'm hoping that the Republican majority in both the Senate and the House can come together and realize that this is something that's incredibly important to protect public health, and that we can get it done before the next election.
Mm-hmm. You'd have to expect quite a bit of pushback on that, though, I imagine.
There is, and actually we have a special election coming up. Congressman Duffy resigned several months ago, so there is a special election coming up in May. It's something that should be done. I don't know that we're going to be able to get it done, but if we don't, I'm telling as many people as I can to request your absentee ballot. You don't need a reason to request one. Just request one mainly to try to help slow the spread of this disease and protect your family and your community.
Mm-hmm. Are you finding that there is more of a willingness to be bipartisan given the circumstances today?
There is. We've had a very contentious last 10 years in the Wisconsin Legislature, as a lot of people know. We came together on this bill, and it's critically important in times like these that we put politics aside and that we work together to try to do what's in the best interest of not only our state, but our entire nation.
Mm-hmm. We talked a little bit about the Safer at Home order that is going to be extended, and I know many folks are very eager to reopen businesses and recapture some semblance of normalcy in life. What are you hearing from your constituents? Are they getting restless?
They are, especially the small business owners, and I don't blame them. People work their entire lives to build up a small business, and with a global pandemic like this, they see that it could potentially all go away, and I empathize with them. And we're going to do everything we can to support small businesses and get back to normal as fast as possible. But we have to trust the science. And we also have to realize that if we try to go back to normal too early and risk spreading this disease into communities that it might not be widespread, it's going to have even more long-term economic impact on people's lives.
Mm-hmm. As you look in your mind's eye, what does it seem to you it would look like to reopen the economy in a safe way?
That's a very good question. I think the most important thing that we need to do to start opening things up is to have widespread testing and also contact tracing. So we need to be able to test people that are sick and people that are found to be infected with COVID. We have to have a robust system to be able to go back and see who they've been in contact with over the past week or two to make sure those folks are quarantined also.
Mm-hmm. That sounds like something that might take a little longer than a month.
It could. The Department of Health Services is working very hard, and they've made great strides to increase the amount of testing and the reliability of the tests, also the contact tracing. And it's something we're going to have to work on. But short of a vaccine, that's our only option to go back to anything that might resemble normal.
Mm-hmm. What's the shutdown doing to the coffers in Madison? Are you concerned at all about the lost tax revenue and what this could mean both short-term and long-term for programs and services?
It's going to have tremendous impacts on state revenues. Wisconsin, all states get their revenue through sales tax, income taxes, and without people working, without people spending as much money as they normally do, we know there's going to be a huge shortfall. It's going to take a lot of pain to get through it, and I don't look forward to those conversations in the future. But right now, we need to focus on the health crisis and make sure we can try to get this under wraps and get back to normal as soon as possible.
Now, the president has formed an advisory council to explore reopening the economy across the country. What happens if that clashes with what's happening in states like Wisconsin?
Well, I'm not a constitutional lawyer, but I do know that states have sovereignty. So I would hope that the president and the administration recognizes the sovereignty of states and allows governors and legislatures to make decisions that they feel are in the best interest of their own state.
And we have about 30 seconds. Is this going to monopolize the Wisconsin Legislature for the year, or do you expect other business to get done?
This will monopolize the legislature for the rest of the year. Actually, anybody running for office just took out papers a couple days ago. So usually we are not doing much for legislation, and anything coming forward will be dealing with COVID-19.
All right. Well, Representative Nick Milroy of South Range, thank you for joining us. Stay well, stay healthy, and good luck as you work to help resolve these issues.
Thank you. Be safe.
Thank you. For many of us, working from home has become the new normal. Sounds great, doesn't it? No commute times, comfortable clothing, familiar surroundings, maybe even your dog. Yet the uncertain times mean that stress levels are high. Producer Greg Grell talked with UMD psychology professor Julie Slowiak about reducing anxiety while you work from home.
First, simply acknowledging that those feelings of anxiety and thoughts of worry are completely normal during this time of uncertainty. And I think that in and of itself is a great strategy, just to be mindful of the fact that what you're feeling is normal, and those feelings and thoughts of anxiety are protective mechanisms. They help us identify when we are in an uncertain or threatening environment. And so it's very normal to have that right now. But grounding strategies are really quite simple, and they can be very useful in kind of giving you that pause that you need in order to respond more effectively during this time of uncertainty. And so a really simple one that I use, that I've taught my students to use, is to really engage with your senses. So wherever you are, whether you're sitting down, you're walking outside, first just identify a few things that you can see in your environment. Then listen, identify a few things that you can hear, maybe things that you can feel or touch, and maybe even things that you can smell or taste depending on what you're doing. So we can engage in kind of these mindful activities with our senses throughout the day. So it could be as simple as, going out to get your mail and, taking just a few moments, taking a few deep breaths and engaging with your senses to become more present.
That's excellent. One of the other things, especially for maybe elderly people or people who have been homebound to start with, isolation and loneliness can really be a problem for people. What can people do to fill those kind of social needs we all have?
Yeah, so I think the first thing to acknowledge is that social distancing is not the same as physical distancing. And what we've really been asked to do is to physically distance ourselves. And so getting creative with how you're going to engage socially, whether it is through, drive-by hellos and greetings. I saw a lot of that happening over the weekend, actually. Friends of mine were driving past, grandparents, parents' homes, waving out the window. That's a great way to do it. Or connecting with family who may not be even living in close proximity. I saw a lot of virtual Easter dinners happening. Virtual happy hours have become a thing too. So, using, any type of video software that you have available. And there are a number of different apps and things that you can use. A friend of mine just made me aware of a video text messaging app where you can leave your friends and loved ones short little video messages instead of texting them, which can be fun, a fun way to be able to see your friends and loved ones. I have scheduled a virtual coffee break with colleagues as another way to stay connected during this time.
What about staying physically active, during the governor's stay-at-home order? What kind of things can people do to stay physically active?
Yeah, so one of the things that I was really happy to hear was that Governor Walz encouraged people to get outside and identified those activities that we can still engage in, like biking, hiking, walking, fishing, so on and so forth, as long as we're practicing safe physical distancing guidelines. And so getting outside, if at all possible, is something that I highly recommend, because we know from the research that there is a positive association for self-reported levels of mental and psychological well-being when we're engaged in activity outside in nature. One of my go-to strategies is to schedule a walk and talk with friends, with family members, with colleagues. And so those could be done in person if you're able to practice physical distancing appropriately. But a lot of times I just throw in my earbuds, I grab the dog, we go out for a dog walk while I'm also catching up with a friend or a loved one. And, if you aren't able to get outdoors, there are a lot of ways to get active indoors too. For those of you who have a treadmill lying around that maybe you haven't been using lately, now is a great time to dust it off, take the clothes that have been draped over the handlebars and start using it. And you can use it very creatively. So one of the things that I did is I set up my old treadmill as a walking workstation. So I just took a shelf and put it over the handlebars, and I can put my laptop on there, and I can check emails while I'm getting some steps in. But I can also participate in meetings. I can put my earphones into my laptop and shut my video off and just listen to those meetings where I don't need to be visibly present. In addition, I know a lot of local health and fitness professionals who are streaming live classes or offering on-demand classes. And that's not only to those who are local, but I think it's a great time to really support our local businesses that aren't able to be open to the public right now. So, looking for those, and also, using DVDs, using whatever you have around the house. I've seen people pick up, bricks or cans of food and use them as workout equipment during these times. So it's really a great opportunity to be creative.
Finally, Professor, you've shared some resources online. What are some of the resources people can go to help them out during this time of stay at home?
Yeah, so one of my favorites is the Face COVID resource that Russ Harris put out. Russ is really well known within the community for acceptance and commitment therapy, and the Face COVID materials really outline an effective approach for how to respond effectively to the coronavirus. And he has made a lot of his resources freely available. Even yesterday, I saw some additional resources that he put up on his website, actmindfully.com. And so I highly recommend any of his materials. In addition, there are a number of apps that are offering free resources, such as Headspace, Insight Timer, Calm, and there's another one called the Act Companion. And for those who are looking for more structure, I would encourage you to check out ACT Guide. There is a small fee, I think it's about $10. And this program was designed by psychologists at Utah State University. And it's an evidence-based online self-help program that is designed to help individuals cope with mental health issues such as depression, anxiety, and stress. So those would be my top three.
Well, thank you very much, Julie Slowiak, professor of UMD Psychology at the UMD Psychology Department. Thank you very much for your time.
Great. Thank you so much, Greg. I really appreciate the opportunity to share this information.
Viewers have been asking when Dennis Anderson will be returning to Almanac North. We have good news to report. Denny will be back next week. I talked with Denny earlier this afternoon about COVID-19 and getting back to work. And Denny, thanks for joining us. It's really fun to see your face. We've been missing you here at Almanac North.
Listen, Julie, I have really missed you and the crew there and the television station and the program. So it's good to be back next week. And I've had a little bit of a battle here, but it was not coronavirus.
Well, you're looking pretty good, so I'm hoping that that you're feeling good and feeling healthy right now.
Feeling better than I was. I had some severe back pain and even spent 2 weeks in a hospital. But I've been mending at home with some home health care and a lot of rehab. And we're starting to make some progress.
Well, let's talk about COVID-19 because you've been a newsman for over 50 years. What's it like to be on the sidelines right now as something this major is unfolding in the news?
Well, I would rather be there reporting on what is happening. I think the last time we saw something in which thousands of people were involved or affected by was the benzene spill a couple of decades ago over in Superior. But the benzene spill even pales in comparison to this coronavirus pandemic. And back then, nobody died as a result of that benzene spill, but we certainly have known that there are local people and people around the world who have succumbed to this horrible pandemic. And sitting on the sidelines is kind of rough because I would rather be out there reporting. And one thing I've noticed on PBS is that you people are giving us the facts, the details without the hype. And boy, that means a lot, where we're getting certainly the true story, but we're not causing people to panic.
How important is it right now, do you think, as someone who has really dedicated his life to the media, that there's trust in the media and what the media is telling people right now?
Well, I've been at this reporting the news on radio and television for 58 years now. And I've noticed this kind of an erosion of what's happening within the media. That is, Julie, I'm finding that more and more broadcasters are giving their opinion in the news. And I would like to see the untarnished facts. Don't give me opinion, just give me the facts. And as a bright man, I can make up my own mind as to what I believe the truth is.
Are you finding yourself kind of glued to the TV these days while you're in quarantine, trying to catch up and sort through all of those facts?
Well, I've been trying to keep up with it, but I don't want an overload either. And I think if you sit at a screen day in and day out watching everything unfold, that it gets depressing. And certainly it is a depressing story. Don't get me wrong. A lot of people are in grief over this because of loss of life. And that's very important. That's a big story in our world and certainly here locally. But you also need to take a break once in a while.
Well, you've had your break now. So
I have.
You will be back here in the Almanac North chair next week. And we're really excited to have you coming back.
And I am so excited about coming back. And like I say, my back issues are starting to dissipate, and that's good.
All right. Good to see you, my friend. Take care.
Good to see you, Julie. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. We are all excited to have him back, and going forward until the COVID-19 restrictions are relaxed, Denny and I will be alternating weeks hosting here in the studio. Well, if you're not feeling well, Essentia Health and St. Luke's both have hotlines. They are answering 24 hours a day to help you. Take advantage of those and other resources available online as we all stay home so we can beat this virus. You can keep up with Almanac North on our social media channels while you quarantine in your homes. You'll find us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And visit the WDSE website for program updates and more information about COVID-19 special programming here at the station. Well, finally this week we talked with two local college students who recently put together an inspiring music video. Uncertain Certainties from musician Josh Peterson and director Ryan Nordine is a contemplation of the times we're living in and the hope for better days ahead. For the crew here at Almanac North, I'm Julie Zenner. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
About a couple weeks ago, before Ryan and I did this video shoot, I was down doing some hiking at the end of Park Point, and I stumbled across this building, and I texted my buddy Matt Porter, who is also another film friend of ours, who then texted Ryan, and then we got a collaboration together within like 3 days.
when we showed up in the space, I was like, there's no way this is going to work with the lighting, and it was super dark. But I was shooting on Sony mirrorless cameras, which are notoriously good in the low light. And when I heard the music, I realized, maybe I can use this to my advantage. Maybe we can use the contrasty light to kind of play off of the music that he was playing. But I knew I wanted to go for high contrast. I wanted to use that doorway kind of as the main framing, get Josh on a third there.
The music itself is kind of a reflection of what's going on now.
I decided to use handheld and some slider and sort of an outdoor dream-like section that I kind of came up with last minute, but I thought it would juxtapose nicely with that sort of happy and sad feeling that I got from the music.
There are so many uncertain aspects to this thing that we don't know what could, what will, what won't happen, versus Certainties, where that is like the second half being, this is certain that this will pass. It's going to suck for a little bit for a lot of us, but time will pass and time will tell that everything will be all right in the end.
This was really fun to have a little passion project that I could just do, in one day and I'd probably spend 3 days on my computer just doing the post work on it.
The reality of it is that it's like, we're going to be facing some hard times, but in the end, we'll all come out of this all right.